The word didgeridoo should conjure up an image and memory of a sound in most people's minds. Yet, as with the history of Indigenous Australia, most non-Indigenous people, most white people, know precious little about that history and even less about the culture of the second oldest continuous human society on our planet. People like me, a white fella Englishman, can boast a civilization that has its roots in the Middle East 6,000 years ago. As a culture, England cannot really be said to have more than 1,000 years of historic identity. On the night of the millennium, 31st of January 1999, I was sitting around a log fire beside the Murray camp at Woodford and yarning with a few friends. I asked a simple question. What do you guys make of the millennium celebrations? Bill paused, looked at the fire, poked a stick in it, and made red embers fly up into the Queensland summer night sky. And then he turned to me and said, "Well, Jack, it's no big deal to us, really. You see, we've had 25 of them, but you go on and enjoy celebrating your first." Mythologies by Jack Adams presents the Didgeridoo as part of the Mythology of Racism series. Mythologies is produced by the School of Mythographology. The didge. What is it? Your answer is probably that it is a musical instrument. In that definition, you understand it, and all that it means. In effect, you are translating one cultural artefact into an understanding based on a completely different culture. And in that, we are not just getting it wrong, but we are placing our own meaning on top of and smothering the meaning of another culture. This is why cross-cultural research is one of the most difficult areas of academic study. No matter how hard you try, you will always be bringing your own cultural lens to view the landscapes of a culture different to yours. What you are about to watch will give you a chance to see how this all works. We have first to thank Rodney Boschman for having the patience and desire to explain to us the didge as he sees it. Remember though, because I am telling the story of the day Rod took me out to what he described as a special place so that he could tell me about the didgeridoo, because these are my words repeating my memory of what he said, they must lose something because of my cultural lens. Just in the words I choose, the way I tell the story, and because of the operation of memory over time, there is a difference. More importantly, I was a white fellow in a black fella's culture, looking in from my outside, and that can never be the same as speaking from within your own culture. Rod may not be a good man. He may not be a perfect human being. He may not even be someone who acts appropriately all of the time. But who can stand up and say that they are good, perfect, and behave well every day of their life? We all have our problems, and Rod's stem from the fact that he was taken from his family as a child and given to a white couple. This is what he says. As a youth he was troubled, got into bad ways, served time in prison, and there was introduced to heroin. This is the story he told me. In a very bad way, after nearly having died from an overdose, an elder of his community decided to teach Rod about the didge, as he believed that connecting the man back into his culture would prove a redeeming strategy in his life. I had never heard anyone play the didge like Rod did when I met him in Queensland. I have never heard anyone do what he had learnt to do. But there is so much more in this story than appears on the surface. 12 years after I took the video, one night in my home in London, I was looking at the footage when I made a discovery that left me way beyond astounded. I'm going to share that discovery with you here. But first, I would like to see if any of you can make it on your own without having it pointed out. My bet is no one will do it. Let's listen to Rod for a bit, and then I will tell you some of the story he told me explaining what the didge is. In this first section, just sit back and consider what it is you're looking at, what it is you are hearing, and what it is you think is happening. Take some notes, write down some ideas. Then I will repeat what Rod told me, and we will listen to some more. Rod told me that he was taking me to a very special place so he could tell me about the didge and play it for me to hear. He told me that the didgeridoo in his cultural heritage, the Whadjari people, was part of the white ant dreaming. He explained the white ant is what we call termites. Rod told how the white ant finds a tree and eats out all the living wood, leaving a hollow branch. The men go looking for such branches and cut them down to make a didgeridoo. Thus the didge is a natural artefact of nature. You can always tell a genuine didge because no two are identical. Inside the didge are grooves and channels where the white ants have eaten away the natural growth, leaving individual paths distinctive to each tree. The tourist didges don't have any grooves inside. They're just gimmicks to sell to idiots and make a few bucks, said Rod. When I'm breathing into the didge, the air from my lungs and the spirit of my body breathes life back into the white ant dreaming. What you're hearing is the white ant dreaming. Now, many of you have probably heard about the dreaming, the primary indigenous mythology of Australia. But if any of you think you can explain it, given you are probably not indigenous, then I would respectfully suggest that you probably don't know what you're talking about. I understand some of it through my own experiences, learning from indigenous people, but I am not even going to try and explain what I think I know or believe I understand, because I know that it's not my history, not my culture, and not something I can ever really get right through my lens. Better to listen to those who are of the culture they speak of. Maybe, if there's an interest, and you can make notes below, I will interview someone qualified culturally to talk about the dreaming for another episode of Mythologies. Rod then explained to me that the sounds he is making are a description of the landscape and the animals within that landscape. He said that the playing of the didge, as he was taught it, brings a connection with the dreaming of the land through his breath and spirit connecting to the white ant dreaming. What we are hearing is part of this mythology of the dreaming in sound. This is the language of the dreaming. This is not a musical instrument in any sense we define a musical instrument, but a cultural artefact used to connect the physical with the spiritual. That's why we get pissed off when we see white fellas in rock bands or some such shit using the didge like it is a trumpet or something. Imagine if I came into one of your cathedrals and took a chalice from your altar and started using it as a symbol on my drum set so I could get a single to number 1. How would you feel? Let's have a listen to some more of Rod, but first we'll start from where he took a break. You may notice, and I say this many times with Rod, that when he is playing, he seems to almost go into a trance-like connection with the didge. Even saying that is probably wrong, and just my own cultural interpretation, but to my eye he seemed to move into a different space when breathing down his didge. The first bit is where I later discovered what was special about the place he had taken me. Perhaps you can discover it. The purpose of this video has been to provide an opportunity for us to start to understand how the process of cultural misappropriation takes place. If you feel that your understanding of the didge has changed from the position you held when you entered this video, then you are experiencing a bit of a cultural shift. That's good, because we need to try and understand our whitefellow history towards Indigenous people, not just in Australia, but all over the world. There is much discussion about institutional racism at the moment, and for many whitefellas, it's difficult to get an understanding of this idea. The problem is that none of us really want to be racist, well, the majority anyway, and none of us really want to act in a racist way, and so we find it difficult to penetrate our own white mythologies and see how they wrap us up in institutionally ingrained ideas. The real struggle is to understand, as I have come to understand, that by saying, I am a racist because I come from an institutionally racist culture, is not a declaration of evil, but a statement of understanding, which then empowers us to move forward and change for the better. We have to see beyond our mythologies if we're going to evolve. A mythology by its very nature can only exist where there is an ignorance. The mythology of racism is no different. It is not just a mythology of prejudice, but a subtle warping of our views of ourselves in relationship to others. Like all who believe in mythologies, we find it hard to see or believe that what we think is a mythology. We believe it is an unalterable truth, an objective reality. But how can there ever be an objective reality when we cannot explain where we are or what we are? Mythology is our past, it is our present, and it is our future. In understanding this, in being able to see beyond the operations of our psyche, we stand a chance of changing our behaviours. In 2011, Rob Boschman was arrested by the police for playing his guitar at a bus station. Maybe it was not wise for Rod to tell the police he was not going to be told he could not play his guitar. Maybe he had a point when he asked why they were bothering him when there were white kids smoking dope just feet away. Maybe he was not wise, but Rod still possesses an anger about his own history and what was done to him as he sees it. What you are watching is the CCTV of Rod Boschman, according to police evidence in court, assaulting the police. For his crime, he went to prison for 4 years. I tried to get legal support for Rod and had this footage to assist, but not one lawyer, law student or law academic replied to my emails. Why was it a special place? Well, if I turn up the volume, you can now hear what I discovered 12 years after the event. If you listen to the sound, you will hear a cycling of Rod's didge. I don't think it can be explained any other way. I had a digital camera. We weren't close to any other people or houses or roads or anything. I had a digital camera that was collecting the sound it was hearing digitally. It's not some sort of fault. There's no example of this anywhere else. But if you turn up the sound, you can hear the walls of the rock which surrounded us are recycling an echo of his didge around and around, and it goes on for ages. The Dreamtime landscape is responding to his white ant dreaming. That's what Rod is listening to. I didn't hear it at the time. I was too absorbed with myself and what a brilliant video I was making. Hear what I missed on that day, because I was just so full of myself. The School of Mythographology exists to provide a challenge to our beliefs in order that we can develop critical thinking and stand a chance of changing our behaviours. In this video, we are looking at the mythology of racism, what we believe that means, how it works, and what we can learn from any knowledge we might gain. In 2020, we saw how the death of George Floyd generated a global movement against racism. Has that changed anything though? Will it change anything? How do we change things we do not like? The School of Mythographology teaches that it is impossible to change anything without understanding mythology as an active force in our lives. The problem with this teaching is that it challenges the mythic identities we create and how we see ourselves. People do not like having their identity challenged. They resist such process, sometimes violently. If we are to truly mature, both as a species and as individuals, we have to be able to see through our own mythologies. To see more about the School of Mythographology, please visit my website